Okay, guys. Again, just to introduce myself, my name is Samir. I'm one of the sales engineers in our Austin, Texas office. I've been with the company for almost 2 years now, so pretty excited to be here. So for most of our presentations that we're going to be covering and these sessions that we're going to be doing today and tomorrow, we're going to be taking a slightly different approach than we've done the previous years. Usually we kind of go over some of the features and how to set them up. But what we're going to do this time, and we'll dedicate some time and try to incorporate a lot of it, even though we're a little bit behind. So again, this is going to be more on the preparing your CRM for your business and customizing the system on a more basic format. So really applying what we talked about in VJ's presentation about applying your sales process, how your leads might come into the system, how you want to categorize them, and what stage they might be in the process of pursuing business with you. And then also, some other key aspects like changing around some of the fields, modifying everything as well. So before we actually get started and show that product, I'm going to start with a small activity here, just to kind of put it into perspective. So this is an example of one type of organization, or one famous company out here in San Francisco, actually. So this is an example of Apple. So, you think of Steve Jobs or, Steve Wozniak now, or Tim Cook, they have their hands in, multiple places and kind of wear separate hats, even though they're the main leader of the company. Here's an example of another one, okay? Another one in San Francisco. So you have a few different department heads at the very top and have their hands in multiple things, and it drills down. This is Google. All right. And so this next one. So this is a little bit different. You have a lot of different people collaborating with each other. It's not really, organized in a hierarchy's perspective, but what comes to mind here? So this is an example of Facebook. And so this is one of my favorite ones, actually. So you have a pretty organized structure, but when things sort of start to fall short, you have people blaming each other and kind of pointing the gun or the finger at them. So this is actually an example of what I think is Microsoft. A lot of people like to say the federal government as well. So I like that answer too sometimes. And here's this last one. So it's a little all over the place, but they tend to get their stuff done as well and provide things like this. So this is actually an example of us. We get a lot of things done. We have all these different products, all these different applications, and we have all our hands in multiple places. So the key takeaway here that I want to talk about is that all these different companies that you see and their structures all over the board, a lot of us are very similar to each other, right? We're in the same industry. We might compete with each other on certain things, but we're operating completely differently. So the idea and the takeaway here is that every business is different. You're not going to be running in the same way as the person next to you, right? And essentially, your CRM shouldn't operate the same way either. So what we're going to talk about in these next couple of slides is, what exactly you can customize to really, mesh it towards your process. So there's a lot of different things. Anything from the fields to how you set up your calendar, organizing different modules, your sales stages that we're definitely going to be talking about today, how your users are set up, automation. So there's a lot that you can do in the system. And it sometimes might be overwhelming. But what you can do is start with, and what we're going to introduce right now is just covering the basics. So the two main facets behind any type of customization or configuration that you do in the system is split up into these two different facets, personal and organization. Personal being what each and every person in the system, each user can define on their own. So, filling in their own contact info, what time zone that they might be in, what language, their own email signature when they want to send emails from the CRM, those types of things. And then also on the other side, which is a little bit more on what we're going to be focusing on today, is the organization's things as well. So all that customization, all those workflows are going to be what we talk about a little bit later in these sessions. But some of the basics that you can do are, add your company logo, set up your currency, and some other things as well. So let's just take a quick second to go into the product. And some of you might already configure this for your accounts as well, but this will be a good refresher. So if everyone can see my screen here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So now what you can go ahead and do, and if you want, you can follow along with me. So to set up some of those basic configurations, you can hit the setup link at the top right. And then the first thing that we're going to be going to is personal settings. So we're going to click on personal settings here. Okay, so it's the very first icon under the setup menu. I'm going to go to it one more time. So setup and then personal settings. So now from here, I can go ahead and add in some more information. We're going to take the same example that we talked about a few presentations ago with Maverick Clothing. And I'm Marco Cuban at Maverick Sports Apparel. Okay, so a few things that I can go ahead and fill in is, my own contact information here. We don't want to run into any copyright issues, so I changed the name a bit. So I can go ahead and, add in some more information about myself, how my other users can reach out to me. So my email address, my phone number, and all that good stuff. And then more on the important side of things here is this locale information. So if I hit this edit button here, I can go ahead and change, what language that the CRM is given to me, what time zone I'm in. So maybe I want to update that to Pacific for now, and save. And then I can also add my own email signature. So if I ever do want to send out emails from the system, I can add my own signature by hitting this edit button and tailoring my information here. So, Marco Cuban at Maverick Apparel, right? So that's a little bit of what you can do in the system. And, just like any other signature that you can add your own logo, add your own website or anything so people can directly, add their information in. Other things that you can do. You can also modify the theme as well. So if you want to change any colors about the system, you can certainly do that. Just to move on a bit, we're going to go into the organization settings here. So under setup and then organization settings. Now, again, I can start adding some more information about my own business. So how other people can contact me and my address information, and I can go ahead and add in, my own details here. And one of the cool things about it is that you can upload your own logo. But essentially, you can basically replace what you see at the very top left. So instead of seeing Zoho CRM, you could see your own company logo anytime someone logs in. So you'll have that capability as well. Other things that you can do are set up your fiscal year. So for reporting purposes in the system, you can modify, what month you might operate in, and also setting up any other currencies that you might be selling in. So if you operate internationally, you can always set up estimates or invoices in other currencies as well. So just one key thing here, the multiple currencies is available in the Enterprise edition of the CRM. So if you might not see it right now, it's because of that addition. So that's a little bit about, some of the personal organization settings. Just to save some time, we're not going to go over an exercise for this one since it's a pretty straightforward one. But let's go on to the next. So now let's talk about some of the things that might apply from Vijay's presentation. So modifying your CRM layout, customizing it for your own business operation. Okay, so the first and most important thing here is organizing the tabs, the ones that you see at the top. Leads, contacts, accounts, potentials, some of the other ones that you might see. So we're going to talk about how we can modify some of them, rename them based on the terminology that you use, or remove any that you might not need. We'll also talk about applying your sales process using some of the fields that we've created inside the system. And then we'll also talk about how you can organize those fields within the lead section, within the contacts or potentials into different sections as well, and then start creating new fields. So anything that you think would be necessary or something that might not be in the CRM already, how you can incorporate those details and add them to your system. And then we'll talk about some of the advanced ones as well. So just to reaffirm what we kind of talked about in Vijay's presentation, the tabs that you see at the top are what we call modules. And the four main ones that we're going to be talking about today are leads, contacts, accounts, and opportunities, or potentials. So leads are considered unqualified individuals, people that have not purchased from you just yet. They're fresh and new. They might come from, a marketing email or, some type of advertisement, trade show. So they're not necessarily qualified. They have not purchased from you yet. And then the next part is the contact section. So whenever you do qualify them, you can move those people into contacts. And then if you're operating on a more business-to-business side, you can also create an account for the company that they represent. So you have those two things that can happen in the conversion process. And then the last thing that you can do is create that potential. So and this goes into the sales pipeline side of things, where you can track the revenue, what stage they might be in the process of pursuing business with you, and closing that deal at the end of the day. Okay. Now, some of you might not be business to business, right? Some of you might be selling directly to consumers. So you might not need the account section. Maybe potentials isn't the right word that you think of when you think of sales opportunities. So maybe you want to change that. So there's actually a couple of things that you can do. So going back into the product here, if I go to the setup menu again, and I go to customization, I can use this place to actually make some modifications to my tabs that I see at the top. So maybe potentials doesn't make sense to me. So what I can do is move over to the potential section and rename it. So I'm going to go ahead and rename it to deals instead of potentials, because that makes a little bit more sense to me. And save. So now every time that I make a modification to the name, it's going to apply to the whole system. So I don't have any type of doubt of any of the different modules in the system. It's going to apply directly. As you can see here, it already went ahead and changed what it says at the top. Maybe accounts does not apply to me. Maybe I just sell directly to consumers. So what I can do is hit this Organize Modules button and then remove the account section. So that'll take away the accounts module from the CRM so that it's no longer there. But at any point, if you think that it is worthwhile, you can always bring it back in. So for me, I think, okay, maybe it is important, so I can go ahead and bring it back in to the system. What you can also do is rearrange these modules as well. So if you want to move where exactly they are in those tabs at the top in the order of them, you can certainly change that around as well. So you're definitely not left in the dust. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay, so moving on a bit. So the next thing that we can talk about now is tying in your sales process, right? So there's three main categories that come into play when we talk about tying it in. So the first thing is, where do your leads come from? How are they generated? So we talked about some in the last presentation, right? Trade shows, advertisements, endorsements, a few other ones around. So that is what we call the lead source field inside the CRM. So where exactly they came from, right? They came from your website, they filled out a form, maybe it was a cold call, that type of thing. So you can use that lead source section to designate where each and every one of your leads came from. And that's going to be important when you start generating reports and seeing how many converted or how many dollars that you actually generated from that one lead source, right? The next thing is qualification. So how exactly would you consider each and every one of those leads? Did some pick up the phone? Did some of them you left a voicemail for? Did some you send an email to? Or did they respond? How exactly would you categorize all of those different leads, right? So that's what we consider the lead status field inside the system. Okay, and then the last one is a little bit further in the process. Once you do qualify them and they're ready to roll, and you convert them into a contact account and create a potential for them, what step are they in the decision-making process? Do they need a price quote? Do they need a demonstration? Those types of things. Are they looking to negotiate the price? So that's what we call potential stages inside the CRM, right? So those are the three things that you can actually modify to fit in your sales process inside the system, okay? So let's take a couple of seconds to go over that. So if I go back into my CRM account here, everyone can go ahead and follow along with me. So I'm going to go back to the setup menu, and again, I'm going to go into customization. Okay, and the first thing that I want to go ahead and modify for my own company is the lead source. So a lot of my leads come from several different places, so I want to go ahead and add those in. Okay, so what I did just now is clicked on the leads section under customization. Okay, and it pulls up the page in front of me of all the different fields that I have in my CRM account. Okay, so I have first and last name, I have email address, phone number, but what we're going to do first and foremost is customize the lead source. Okay, all right, so if I hit this gear icon and hit edit properties here, it's going to pull up the list of all the existing lead sources that I have. So advertisement, cold call, employee referral, all that good stuff. So there's probably some in here that don't apply to me. I don't think employee referral or maybe partner doesn't really work for me, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that by hitting this minus button. Now, if I want to add something in, all I have to do is hit this plus button here and add in something else. So I'm going to say, I can't even come up with one yet. So I'll just say from Google search. All right. So I advertise a lot on Google AdWords, so that's going to be one that I want to use, right? You can also, change where they are in the list. So if you want to pull this up and maybe that's one of the first ones that comes in, you can go ahead and place it up at the top. So you can use this as a way to modify where exactly your leads come from. Okay. Now the second thing is the lead status. So how would I categorize all of my different leads when my sales reps are following up with them? So I can hit this settings section under lead status and do the same thing. So I have a few that I've already customized so far. I've assigned to the sales team, good lead, junk lead, lost lead, all these good ones. So I can use these as a way to kind of modify what I already have. Okay. So that's how you can modify those stages and those status fields. And then once I figured that out, I went ahead and updated and saved that layout. Now the last thing here is my potential stages or my deal stages now. So if I move on to the deal section, so if I go back to this module list and scroll down to deals here, or potentials for everyone else, I can go over to the stage section over here and do the same thing. It's going to pull up this stage probability mapping function. Okay, it's going to pull up a very similar list of what we've seen before, but it's a little bit different. And a few things that it's going to ask you are the different names for your stages, just like we talked about before in status and source, but also the probabilities and the forecasts. Okay, so we're going to be talking about those two aspects in our next section with Ricky. So we'll leave that aside for now, but essentially the same thing you can do here is add your own stages inside the system. So, of course, there's probably ones in here that were pre-built that you probably don't need, like price quote might not apply to everyone, or, value proposition might not apply to everyone. So you could always take those out. If you want to modify where they are, what step it is in the process, you can always modify the order of them and then change up those probabilities as well. So you could certainly do that inside here. Okay. And then what's the next step here? So we talked about some of the sources, the statuses, and those stages as well, and applying your sales process inside the CRM. But other than that, what are some other primary pieces of information that you need to collect from your customers, right? Maybe it's contact information, so their phone numbers, their email addresses. Maybe it's some sales details as well, like maybe their budget, the quantity of what they're looking for, those types of things, right? What services that they want, what do they want to try out? But of this information, what do you think is the most mandatory, right? What is absolutely necessary for you to use? For me and for my business, I think email is the most important because I do most of my communication via email, right? So that's going to be something absolutely required for me. And then thinking about it a little bit more, thinking about some of the information that you need to collect from your customers, what's not already in the CRM? We already have things like email address or phone number or status and source, for example. But what are other things in your business that you collect from your customers that might not already be in the CRM, right? So think about those things for a second. And what you can do inside the CRM is actually create those fields and make those modifications to make things important, right? So how do you do that? So going into the same customization page that we were in, I'm going to move back to leads now. So again, I'm going to go to setup, customization, and then I'm going to go to my leads. So like I said before, for me, email address is probably one of the most important things. So what I can do is move over to email here and hit that settings button again and mark it as required. What that means is that any person that tries to add in a new lead inside the system, any one of my sales reps, they're required to enter an email address or else it will not save the lead. So it's absolutely required. I could do that for a few other fields as well, right? So if I want to make phone number a mandatory field, I could certainly do that. Other options as well. So you could definitely make those modifications to some of the fields that you have inside the system. Now, on top of that, thinking about some of the pieces of information that are most necessary, if there's something in here in this form that's or something that's not in this form already, you can use what we see on the left-hand side, these new fields, to create something to accept more information. So let's just say for my business of sports apparel, I want to kind of track and see what sizes that they need and what's the quantity of some type of product that they need or what that product type is. So let's go with the first one. What product type? So I can create a pick list field. So I can drag this drop-down list option and bring it over to the right-hand side. It's going to pull up a list for me to fill out. So I'm going to say product type here. And then I'm going to say jerseys, athletic shorts, going along the same line, knee pads, I guess. A few other ones as well, maybe headbands. There you go. So I have a few of these already inside the system, okay? So it allows me to select what this lead is interested in, right? Let's talk about a few other things. Maybe what size that they need for those. So those might apply to multiple, right? Maybe they need a few larges, they need a few smalls, they need a few XLs. So I can use a multi-select. So I can drag that over here. And what that means is it's just like another drop-down list, but I can select multiple. So I'll say sizes, and I'll do small, medium, and large. Okay? A couple of different ones. What else do I need? Maybe quantity is something pretty important as well. So I can drag over a number field and call it quantity. So those are just a few examples of the things that I would need in my system for sports apparel, right? Now, another thing, it's in my lead information where I get my contact info from, fax number, website, all that good stuff. It's probably not important to have it over here. So what I can do as well is start creating different sections. So you'll see this on the very bottom of the new fields is this new section option. So I can drag this over as well and call it product information, right? And then I can go ahead and drag those few fields that I created over into this product section right over here. So it allows me to create these different organized sections in my lead information and prioritizes what is most important and what's really grouped together, right? You already have lead and address info already, and it kind of divides those up for you, but you can always make modifications and move some things around. And so thinking about some of the fields that we talked about here, we talked about numbers, we talked about drop-down lists, but you have all these other different options as well. Maybe when they want to make a decision by, so the date field. Maybe if you set up contracts for your customers, what's the contract expiry date? Maybe a checkbox to see if they're interested, yes or no. Maybe another website field. There's all these different field options that you see in front of you. So you can use this as a way to create and modify some of the different field options that you have in your lead section. And of course, you can make modifications to not only the leads, but also accounts, contacts, and so on and so forth. Now, another key thing here. Whenever you create fields in the lead section, you'll also be able to map those to contacts, accounts, and potentials. What that means is whenever you do convert a lead and once they're qualified over to a contact, you can make sure that those fields are available in the next section and accept that information. So if I hit this gear icon here and go to edit properties for maybe quantity, you'll see this also create for option. okay? And it'll allow me to create those fields for contacts, accounts, and also potentials or deals in this example, okay? So it allows me to actually create that in the system. Some of you might not be able to see it for some of the fields that you create already. It'll be available when you create new fields, but any existing ones, you'll need to recreate them and map them later. But we'll talk about that. Okay, so now I have, my quantity, sizes, and products in my new fields as well. Okay, so I can go ahead and save that layout. So now it's available for me. If I go into my lead section now, and I try to create a new lead, that product information is going to be right there in front of me for me to utilize. Okay, so it's all available for me. So now any new rep that I have can go ahead and enter that information using this product section and select any one of these that are available. Okay. All right, so moving on a bit, the last thing that we're going to be covering right now is filtering through your data. So as soon as you do make those modifications inside the CRM and add new fields and everything like that, now the next portion is to actually maneuver through your data, right? So as soon as you accumulate a few thousand leads or a few thousand contacts or opportunities, so how are you actually going to be maneuvering through that data, right? So you've probably already seen in the system is that when you click on the Leads tab, you have all open leads, right? That little drop down on the top left that shows every single lead that you have in the system. But what you can do is drill down on that. So maybe you want to make modifications to the leads in a specific area. So maybe you just want to focus on leads in California, or you just want to take a look at leads from a specific zip code, maybe ones that are interested in a specific product, like jerseys, for example. So what I can do is create new filters in my system to navigate between those, right? So maybe all open leads or my contacts is probably not enough for, the things that your sales reps might be working on or yourself as well. So let's kind of go over how that works. So when you're in the Leads tab, I'm just going to create one for one of these real quick. So when I'm in Leads, I can hover over this section that says All Open Leads, and it gives me a few options over on this right-hand side. So I can hit Create View here, and I'm gonna give it a name. So I'll just say my leads in Texas. Right? And so from here, I can pick and choose what columns that I want to have in this list. So first, last name, company, and email is pretty good, but I want to add in a few more things. Let me add the city, and let me add the state, just so we know it's in Texas. And then also, I think we're good here. Okay. And so it's going to ask you who you want to share this filter with. So do you want to save it only for yourself? Do you want to share it with other people so they can access that view and look at that filter of data? Or you just want to pick and choose specific people that you want to give that option to. So you can pick and choose any one of your users to see that filter. So I have like Dirk Nowitzki. Maybe he's going to need to use this. So I can add him as someone to access that view. And then the last thing is to specify that criteria. So from here, I can hit the first drop-down that shows me all my different fields. So I'm going to choose state, and it gives me the option to search by or query. So I could say is, and then Texas, okay? So it's allowing me to pick and choose that criteria. So now I can save this. Shoot, I don't have any leads in Texas. All right. What I'm going to do is make this California. I know I have a lead in California, so I'm going to change it to that. There you go. Okay, so I have Jasmine Frank from the Pleasanton Porcupines, from Pleasanton, California, ironically, and she's that one lead that I have in this filter here. So I could see that I have, just a few different options for leads in that section. And of course, I can always create more and more of these filters. One I just created is leads in California, but I can maneuver from some other ones as well. And you have some that are already available for you. So we're pretty much done with the sort of task and exercise portion, which we were supposed to have some time for. But just some of the other key customization options that you have. On top of any of the modules that you see inside the CRM, so leads, contacts, accounts, reports, dashboards, invoices, quotes, all those different things, if there's something a little bit outside the scope that you might want to bring inside the system, you can always create your own module from scratch. So maybe in my example, I want to look at distributors of my product, right? So on top of the vendors that I purchase my merchandise from, on top of the people that I sell to, I have distributors that do some of the selling for me as well, right? Maybe I want to create another module inside my CRM that just takes in distributors, right? Other examples, maybe in the real estate market, you want to have another module just for your properties. Maybe for other ones, you want to have distributed ones for types of vendors or types of accounts, all those different types of things. You can actually create your own module from scratch and make those connections. So let's just say, continuing on the distribution example, I want to see what customers actually purchase from those distributors, right? So I can actually make a link from my contacts or my accounts to a distributor, right? We actually have a field for that. So you can actually make connections. You can link different modules together, even these custom modules, so that they're all working together, and you can kind of see that data in one place. So if you ever need a report on it, which we'll talk about later, we'll be able to do that for you, right? Some other customization options. So on top of the personal and organization settings that we've discussed so far, everything from customization to setting up your email settings and all that, or your signature, another cool thing that you can do is customize your homepage. So if I go back to my CRM here, and I go to my homepage, it kind of gives me a few things already inside the system. So open tasks, a couple of charts that I have. So each actual user can modify what they see in front of them. So I can move these things around. So if I want to put pipeline by stage up at the top, I can certainly do that. I can also make modifications to these different charts that I see, so I can pick and choose from some of the other ones that are available. And I can also add some more stuff in. So if I hit this plus icon right over here, I can go ahead and add in another component. So I can select another module. Maybe I just want to see leads that were generated today, so I can add another little component in my home screen for that. So each user in the system, all of your sales reps, all of your other managers or other supervisors will have access to make their own dashboard and home screen right inside the system. So every time that they log in, they see something a little bit more towards what they like to see inside the CRM. Okay? And also, which we'll have dedicated sessions for, is setting up your reports and those dashboards and charts that we just talked about, and also setting up your users. So, but that's pretty much it. So kind of what we talked about here is that we went over the personal settings, so adding in your own picture and logo and all that, and also organization settings, so adding in everything for your organization. What else did we talk about? We talked about organizing your tabs, so modifying some of the tabs that you see at the top, so making some things renamed or removing some things. We also went ahead and talked about tying in your sales process. So again, using the lead status field, the lead source field, and also the potential stages. So using those to kind of categorize where your leads and opportunities are in the process. And then we also talked about organizing your layout. So making some fields required, and then also creating new fields and organizing them into different sections. And the last thing that we talked about here is filtering through your data. So creating different custom fields or custom views and filters to drill down on some of the leads or some other data that you might have in the system. Okay, so that's pretty much it.